before the marble shrine of the great emancipator, the afternoon needs the lighter entertainment that had been held in the morning at the other end of the reflecting pool. Dr. King, one of the foremost fighters for civil rights, is one of many speakers who remind the gathering that this march must not be counted a final victory or defeat, no matter what the immediate reaction of the members of Congress may be. At a White House meeting following the march, President Kennedy warns its leaders that strong bipartisan support will be necessary to get civil rights legislation passed this term. He adds that the orderly demonstration will advance the cause of 20 million Americans. And the gentle march has touched the hearts of millions more who perhaps for the first time can look to the fulfillment of the dreams that Dr. King shares with his people.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
After the March on Washington and Dr. King's speech, the FBI intensifies its campaign against Dr. King. Assistant Director of the FBI, William Sullivan, concerned over J. Edgar Hoover's earlier reaction to a memo which stated that there was no communist or subversive influence within the civil rights movement, now prepares a memo stating that Dr. King was, quote, the most dangerous man in the United States. It may be unrealistic to limit ourselves, as we have been doing, to legalistic proofs of definitely conclusive evidence, unquote.
He was prepared to try to destroy anything he saw as disruptive to the social order of things. That he saw, in the early days, the mob as, the image of the G-men against the mob and so forth. And then later in terms of counterintelligence against foreign agents. And now in the 60s, something that he didn't understand, the civil rights movement disrupting the social order of things, you use the same kind of tactics that you use against the mob and the people, foreign agents, as to citizens of the United States who were trying to get, their civil rights and their civil liberties, because they were all threats to the social order. And therefore, COINTELPRO came into being, and he thought he had basically God on his side.
In direct violation of the United States Constitution, you have been forced to consider this legislation through the pressure and blackmail of mobs in the streets. The President of the United States and the Attorney General have encouraged demonstrations, freedom rides, sit-ins, picketing, and actual violations of local laws.
It's in this context that Robert Kennedy first raises the question of whether a wiretap could be installed on King's residence. And ultimately, in October of '63, Kennedy agrees. His authorization, however, is conditional. That is, that within a 30-day period, the Bureau should come back. And the strategy seems to be that, okay, we will authorize within this time frame, you will pick up information, and I think his original interest was that if you tap King and you find no contact with subversive, quote, individuals, then it establishes you don't have subversive control. And so when he goes the second time to this limited authorization, it is to confine it in time, nothing is uncovered, you're home free. If Southern Democrats say you're protecting King, you say, look, we authorized the tap of him. You do that, silently, and we found nothing, so that these allegations are unfounded. What does happen is that in November of '63, John Kennedy is assassinated, and Robert Kennedy forgets about his condition, and Hoover does not come back to him and say, look, Mr. Attorney General, you asked us to come back in 30 days. Do you want us to continue the tap? And the King tap is only discovered by Kennedy's successor, Nicholas Katzenbach, in '65.
When news of Dr. King's Nobel Peace Prize reaches FBI Director Hoover, he is outraged and describes King to associates as, quote, one of the lowest characters in the country, unquote. Hoover's second-in-command, William Sullivan, authors an anonymous letter to King urging that he kill himself. King, in view of your low grade, I will not dignify your name with either a Mr. or a Reverend or a Doctor, and your last name calls to mind only the type of king such as King Henry VIII. King, look into your heart. You know you are a complete fraud and a great liability to all of us Negroes. White people in this country have enough frauds of their own, but I am sure they don't have one at this time that is anywhere near your equal. You are no clergyman, and you know it. I repeat, you are a colossal fraud and an evil, vicious one at that. You could not believe in God. Clearly, you don't believe in any personal moral principles. King, like all frauds, your end is approaching. You could have been our greatest leader. You, even at an early age, have turned out to be not a leader, but a dissolute, abnormal, moral imbecile. We will now have to depend on our older leaders like Wilkins, a man of character, and thank God we have others like him. But you are done. Your honorary degrees, your Nobel Prize, what a grim farce, and other awards will not save you. King, I repeat, you are done. No person can overcome facts, not even a fraud like yourself. I repeat, no person can argue successfully against facts. You are finished. And some of them to pretend to be ministers of the gospel. Satan could not do more. What incredible evilness. King, you are done. The American public, like church organizations that have been helping Protestant, Catholic, and Jew, will know you for what you are, an evil, abnormal beast. So will others who have backed you. You are done. King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days in which to do. This exact number has been selected for a specific reason. It has definite practical significance. You are done. There is but one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is bared to the nation.
We have no alternative but to keep moving with determination. We've gone too far now to turn back. And in a real sense, we are moving and we cannot afford to stop because Alabama and because our nation has a date with destiny.
Selma, Alabama was an old southern town. Selma had been a slave market prior to the Civil War and a military depot at the time of the Confederacy. Martin Luther King calculates that because of its viciously racist sheriff, Jim Clark, and Clark's potential for overreaction, Selma, Alabama is the perfect location for the SCLC's campaign. True to form and King's insight, Clark shocks a watching nation and world by unleashing an unparalleled brutality on the helpless demonstrators.
To be detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that this is an unlawful assembly, this march will not continue. Troopers here advance toward the group. See that they disperse.
Let the nation know, and we must let the world know, that it is necessary to protest this threefold evil. The problem of the denial of the right to vote, to police brutality, that we continue to face and faced in its most vicious form last Sunday. Then the attempt to block First Amendment privilege. We have the right to walk the highway. We have the right to walk to Montgomery if our feet can get us there.
This is Mr. C.M. Rhodes, minister of the Selma Avenue Church of Christ, on the occasion of the Selma to Montgomery March. You've seen the civil rights movement in Selma, Mr. Rhodes, in the past 9 weeks. Will there be any good from the demonstration march that is now in progress?
Well, in one sense, I think there will be good. I think it will awake the nation, America, as to what is really behind it and the complex issues that are involved, the communist infiltration, and a number of other factors. So I think there will good come from it, even though there's a great deal of agitation and quite a mess as it is.
You've seen it transpire over the past 9 weeks here in Selma. Just what have you seen?
Well, I've seen communism in action. I've seen exploitation of boys and girls who should have never been taken out of the schools. I've seen false promises made on the part of the civil rights leader. I've seen the Negro himself being used as a pawn and as a tool by this conspiracy.
What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too. Because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
That period of getting, and when you consider the number of black people living in the South without the right to vote, and some of the few who did were told how to vote. And then even after the Voting Rights Act, that one, they came up with all kind of schemes to deny. It was a terribly significant moment in the movement.
Let us march on segregated housing. Yes, sir. Until every ghetto or social and economic depression. Yes, sir. Dissolve the Negroes and whites live side by side in decent, safe, and sanitary housing. Yes, sir. Let us march on segregated schools. Until every vestige of segregated and inferior education becomes a thing of the past. And Negroes and whites study side by side in the socially healing context of the classroom. Let us march on poverty. Let us march.
Your willingness to go to jail will make jobs possible for everybody else who will finish school. Negroes going to school, we finish school and can't get any jobs down here anyway. They throw us in the worst positions, and whether we have high school training or not, or beyond that, we are still the last tied in the first five. So what we've got to see is that the things that are being done in such a creative manner by you will make Birmingham a better city for everybody.
Sparked by a case of police brutality, the Watts Rebellion in Los Angeles changes the course